The simplicity of Christ, a message of freedom from our friend G.M., the theologian. When Jesus Christ came to earth, he did not present us with a series of countless rules or threats. On the contrary, his words were simple and profound, understandable to every person regardless of education or social status. With his words, he called us to love God and our neighbor, two commandments that contain the entire essence of faith, morality, and love. And despite the simplicity of these commandments, however, people in their need to understand and regulate their relationship with God and others created a multitude of rules and ideological systems that often reflect human nature and our weaknesses despite the divine intention of Christ. Religious traditions, the various rules established by religious authorities, and discussions about hell or salvation can lead the believer to confusion and fear instead of freedom and love. Christ, with his presence on earth, did not come to frighten men, but to show him the way of love, forgiveness, and renewal. The need for rules and restrictions often comes from the human inability to understand the absolute and the divine. It's easier to follow a specific series of actions or rules that theoretically lead us to salvation than to understand the deeper meaning of love and truth that Christ taught us. But Christ did not speak to us about a system of control and oppression. On the contrary, he spoke about the freedom that comes from true love and trust in God. True faith is not imposed with fear, but with love and respect for human freedom. The essence of Christianity, as Christ presented it, is love. Love for God and love for our fellow man are the two basic principles on which his entire teaching is built. He did not tell us that we must follow strict rules, but to live with our hearts open to God and our neighbor. Love is what frees us from sin and fear. True freedom comes when we understand what we do not need to follow, that we do not need to follow a series of inhumane rules, but to live with our hearts full of love and respect for the will of God. Christ came to earth to free us from human limitations and misunderstandings. His message is simple: to love God and our neighbor. Fear and the threat of hell have no place in the true teaching of Christ. On the contrary, living with love, freedom, and respect is a path that leads us to true salvation. The tradition of our church is full of wisdom that supports the simplicity of Christ's message and the need not to be dominated by human limitations that take us away from the essence of faith. Words of elders and saints of our holy fathers of Christian Orthodoxy, Saint Siluana of the Athonite says, in simple but profound words, refers to the power of God's love and the importance of human freedom. He said, "The love of God is what saves us, not fears and threats. Do not let your mind be filled with fear, but with hope of God's love. If you love God and your neighbor, you will find peace of mind." The teachings of St. Paisius of Mount Athos reinforces the notion that a Christian's life should not be burdened with human rules and restrictions. He himself, always in words full of affection, said, "Christ came into the world to free us from fears and sins, not to impose a strict regime on us. Love for God and for our fellow man is everything. When you love, then you do not need other rules." Elder Ephraim of Arizona, in one of his sermons, noted, "We should not live our lives in fear that if we do something wrong, God will punish us. God is love and calls us to love and forgive. Religion is not a set of rules to frighten us, but to empower us in love and freedom." St. John of the Ladder says, he who serves virtue and the spiritual life with humility and sincerity said, "Salvation is not achieved by blind obedience to external rules, but by cultivating internal love and faith in God." These words of the Holy Fathers remind us that true freedom and salvation come not through fear of external rules, but through love for God and for other people. The Church calls us to live our faith in the way that Christ taught us, not through threats and strict regulations, but with the power of love cultivated in our hearts. And as St. Gregory Palamas says, "True salvation comes from the heart, from a person's sincere relationship with God and the love that flows from this relationship. The rules of the church, the laws, are there to guide us, but they should not become an end and a goal, but only a means to freedom and love. Christ calls us to a life that is not based on fear, but on transcending ourselves through love and forgiveness. Let us return to this simple and pure truth, leaving behind us the human laws that often darken the light of His Word. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. God bless you all. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.